Another Japan box. Ooh, wait, this is, it's in Japanese, but I know the cover. I want to say it's John Lennon. All right, this is the Beatles White Album. That's cool. Another Beatles.
How much Beatles you gonna have?
More Beatles, more Beatles! And the #1 Beatles. Oh my goodness, look how cool. Okay, I'm happy. The Beatles, Abbey Road, Pure Paul McCartney, Flaming Pie. I love this CD. Oh, Revolver. I wonder if I have all the Beatles now. I gotta do my research.
You got so much Beatles.
I might have all the Beatles. Today's episode, it is all about the Beatles. I have been diving deep into everything about them. Now, this is my first time really sitting down and listening to all the albums. I have been sharing my journey a little bit on Instagram, asking you guys questions, those who grew up with the Beatles, those who are second generation fans. I guess I'm third generation fan. And what really started this journey is I got sent a lot of CDs, and I have shared that with you guys earlier in a few episodes ago. But the most ultimate piece, I got sent the Beatles Japanese CD box sets, special release. A lot of these were remastered. A lot of these have like special bonus songs included. This is like the ultimate gift, and having an opportunity to become a fan myself. If you don't know anything about the Beatles, just join me on this journey. If you know everything about the Beatles, please share your journey with me. I listen to all these. I want to tell you what I think about them, my reactions about them, so stay tuned. When it came to the box set, it gave me a real opportunity to really listen and to sit down and to take it in. This is the Beatles 1962-1966 red, and the blue 1967 to 1970. These are the greatest hits from those albums. It is really amazing when I look at the time span, because for me, I wasn't in that part of history. But when I see that this was just 10 years of making music, how amazing it must have been every other year or so getting a new album. First disc has Love Me Like You Do, which opens up with that iconic harmonica sound of the 60s. This album has covers like Twist and Shout, and you get to hear how the Beatles are evolving from that pop rock hits like I Wanna Hold Your Hand and All My Loving. The song Yesterday's on this album, and you get to hear a preview of the Beatles and how much deeper they can really go and how much more talented they were than just a teenage pop band. When it came to this album, the Beatles 1967 to 1970, there was a lot of good songs. It's just kind of amazing that they wrote so many amazing iconic songs like Strawberry Fields Forever. I just thought it was really interesting how the tempo was changing as the song was progressing. And I began to notice even the smallest sounds that I would never think were a part of the song. So it was really interesting just to sit down and really take in these songs. And I am finding that these songs are just full of layers. You have the first layer, which is the song, and then you have the lyrics, then you have all the interesting elements that go into play with these songs. The second disc has a lot of the songs from the Let It Be album, like Blackbird, Get Back, Octopus Garden is from the White album. I think the song that I had never heard or didn't pay attention to, but like it caught my attention, was the last song, Now and Then. But I think that's the song that's like, oh, I was looking for this song, and I got to really experience it. One of the albums I am missing is Rubber Soul, that was released in 1965. I've never heard it. After that gave us Revolver. Now, I've listened to Revolver many times. I have it here on vinyl, and this is a Revolver remastered from 2019, and I was really recommended, like, you gotta listen to Revolver, but I didn't quite understand the story of Revolver. It's also really important to note that during this time, the Beatles' schedule had opened up after their film was postponed. So even before they started Revolver, they really had a personal time to explore things. George had gotten married and he got really into Indian music. Paul was reading, he was listening to jazz. John was still doing interviews, and he talked about very openly about doing LSD and smoking marijuana. He shared about what he was reading, that he was reading about religion. Most pop stars just don't share about their interests, which would lead to any controversy. This is also the time where John did a famous interview where he says a quote that really bothered a lot of people. The Beatles are more popular than Jesus at the moment. They were almost going to record at the EMI studios in Los Angeles, but they decided that they would stay in Abbey Road. They had their sound engineer, George Martin, who brought in a new engineer, 20-year-old Gerolf Emerson. They started to play with manipulating the tape and the different speeds. They would spend hours exploring new techniques. George says as they got more successful that they were able to try out new different ideas. So this is also when the Beatles decided to stop touring and just kind of become a studio band, which was, I think, a great decision for them. And I think that's why we got so much great music in the time that we had them together. In the CD box, it also has Revolver singles and session highlights. Just kind of hearing a new take on some of these songs I've heard for many times was really fun. In fact, like, these are my favorites. I just love feeling like I'm in the studio with them, hearing there's the surprises of start and stopping and what they decide to do and how it changed. So that was really fun to kind of see that process. Then 1967 hits and Sgt. Pepper is released. I loved hearing the genesis of how this developed. It kind of gave me a better understanding of the album. I think I just didn't really understand, like, what is this? And just reading the booklet, it talks about how the roadie told Paul, hey, pass the pepper, and he misunderstood him and he thought he said Sgt. Pepper. And that went on this creative journey of let's create this alter ego of the Beatles, of Sgt. Pepper Band, and make songs for that band. And I think that gave them that creative freedom that you hear in the songs. They're fun songs. The whole art direction was really cool. A lot of the music videos that I had seen over my lifetime were really fun and very colorful. I mean, this is a time in history where probably color is still kind of new. A lot of people had their black and white sets, and now you see the Beatles in just full color. And this has so many great songs. You have Sgt. Pepper Lonely Heart Club Band. You have A Little Help from My Friends, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I think there's just so many great ones. Lovely Rita was really cool. When I'm 64 is really cool. One thing that was surprising about this album, it felt really short, but it was good short. It felt like it was the right timing, but a lot of the songs were really short and it was just really fast. The CD number 2 is a lot of these recording sessions that are very long. So that gave me exactly what I was looking for, kind of like, I want to sit with these songs a little longer than what was released. And also the booklet's talking a little bit about like the mono version that was released, which now I get it. This is why a lot of these albums are looked after the mono version. It's just a different experience. It's a different listening experience. And now I want to be able to see and to hear, like, what does that sound like? When it comes to the Beatles collection, I think I have just like 2 CDs. Yellow Submarine, which is a Beatles cartoon that I did not know about. And one of you guys shared that with me. That was so neat. I have to watch it. I haven't finished it. And then Magical Mystery Tour. This is like, sounds a little kooky. This took me a while to really figure out, like, what was this? They released a Beatles film and side 1 is full of different tracks I had never heard before. It opens up with Magical Mystery Tour, which kind of gives us an indication this is not your normal Beatles album. In fact, it's going to be a little weird. The song The Fellow on the Hill has a very dated sound to me from the 60s with this small, gentle flute. I did enjoy the song Fly, which has a soft guitar melody, and at the end there's some harmonies. The song I didn't really enjoy was Blue Jay Ray. Now this is a George Harris's song, which I'm surprised, but I'm interested to see how in the movie they use this song, because I think it's more, has a lot of haunting, dramatic kind of theater sound to it, so it'll be cool to see how did they use this song. Side 2 has those favorite Beatle hits from Sgt. Pepper, like Hello Goodbye, Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane. The Strawberry Fields sound a little bit slower in this version, and Penny Lane and All You Need Is Love had a very more commercial sound to it. I think the thing that does stand out about this album was the booklet inside. There's lots of photographs, lots of pictures. There's even artwork done by a famous artist from then. And I did order the Mystery Tour film, so I am excited to kind of see what it is. I heard it's a bit like, lower your expectations. It's not going to be as profound and awesome as you think, but I think from my point of view, I haven't really seen many films of the Beatles, so it'll be interesting to see them alive and moving and interacting with each other. Then you have 1968 White Album. Now, the first few times I heard the White Album, I kept forgetting it. Like, the experience was forgettable, but it was because every song was just so different. I couldn't like grab onto it. But then listening to it maybe a third time, then I was like starting to really understand it and to get it. And some of the songs that I didn't think I would like, I started to like. The White Album was released in 1968, just 18 months after Sgt. Pepper. Imagine just trying to live up to the hype of Sgt. Pepper. The White Album didn't disappoint because it was so experimental. It was nothing like they had previously done. Now, in the life of the Beatles, they were kind of going through something themselves. Their manager had shockingly died, and the booklet doesn't say why, but reading this book I got from the library just a few days ago, All You Need Is Love, talks about how their manager was kind of addicted to pills and other drugs. Recording the sessions were said to be very complicated for the engineer. There was multiple studios that were recording at, multiple takes. It had just become so customary for multiple tracks that there was just a lot to work with when it came to the studio recordings. Some of my favorite tracks was Blackbird, a very simple acoustic song. Peggy creates this unique world of sounds. I Will has this tempo change. All these songs are very experimental and very interesting and entertaining. The song Long, 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 I didn't even notice it until maybe the third or fourth listen of how great it was. The third disc has demos, which are recordings that were never meant to be heard outside the inner circle. These were recordings done at George's house, acoustic versions, just very stripped down even before they started adding different layers to the songs. You really get to hear an authentic take of these songs, which I really enjoyed, and I really love these outtakes and so glad they're released where we can enjoy it. 1968, we get Abbey Road, probably one of my favorite. I would say I've heard this one many times. I do have it on vinyl. This was like a Walmart release. This was really fun to hear kind of the second CD, which is the alternate versions and mixing of it. You hear kind of how they're becoming these masters of their instrument and what they're best at. Abbey Road was released at the height of the power of the Beatles. The first track, Come Together, has that strong bass and drums. It has a build-up that would just get anyone, it hooks anyone. I think this is probably one of my favorite songs. Something, written by George, a late bloomer in songwriting, is super beautiful and sweet. I really enjoy getting to know who Ringo is. Octopus Garden is a fun and silly song that he wrote. I can see how it could be easily cut and maybe not even regarded as a legit song, but it has so much personality and it's really become one of another favorite songs of the Beatles. And the last few songs just begin to blend together, where now this is really completing an album, where I think this is the most album-like album that the Beatles had released. And then last in the journey is Let It Be. This was my first time hearing this album, and this had like kind of a softer tone to it. I don't know, it wasn't as like, oh, here's the rock hits, but more like here's our soul. The Two of Us, Across the Universe, I Got a Feeling. My Morning Camera was my favorite, and I think that is, I don't know if that's officially on the album, but here on the outtake highlights, that was like my favorite song. I just loved hearing the guys in the studio. So Let It Be, I know a few of you mentioned to me that this is your favorite, and so that just kind of shows you're kind of a sweeter soul. I think, you know, hey, what Beatles album is your favorite? It's very telling. One of my favorite tracks from the Let It Be album is The Two of Us. I have fallen for the drums on this album. The drums are the star of the show for me. Across the Universe, if I begin to tune into each layer, I was having a whole different experience with the song. There are so many layers, and as I felt like a camera director switching camera shots. First, I would focus on Ringo, then I would move on to the lyrics looking at John, then I would zoom out and see the whole song. Another track I really enjoyed from this album was A Long and Windy Road. I love that it was kind of slow and kind of sad. It really made me think about life as a whole, and also thinking about how this was kind of the end of the journey for them. And last song, it's Get Back. It's such a fun song. Again, I really love the drumming on the song. It's really catchy, and it was one that I put on repeat. Last is Beatles #1. Now this is, I think I had this one before, but yeah, I think if I'm in the car and I'm just doing a road trip and just want some hits, this is one to get. This also came with a Blu-ray. Haven't checked out the Blu-ray yet, but this also has a booklet of just a little bit more Beatle history, a lot of Beatle pictures, and yeah. So it's been a really fun journey of just the Beatles. I have more Beatles here. I have John Lennon. I have some of Paul McCartney. I'll do those in later episodes. I want to say thank you to the subscriber who sent me all these CDs. It's been a really fun journey. You're just unlocking different dreams I had of mine, of like maybe one day I could be a songwriter, you know, and even just singing for fun and singing for my family and bringing the kids on, learning, just having music all around us. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to my channel if you frequently see my videos and you're not subscribed yet. Take the time to subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next episode.
Hey!
Okay, Enzo, I cannot concentrate. I cannot be Monty Muse when Enzo's around.
I must have a diva look.